Okay, this is the lesson you are doing on Wednesday, October 7th. And again, it's going to run kind of like a normal lesson, except for using the video. It's kind of like you go into breakout groups of one. You just don't have a chance to talk to a group. Okay, so this is the worksheet for today. What is wrong with these surveys? I want you to do numbers 1, 2, and 3, everything up to the big ideas on your own. Put your best effort into it. So pause the video, do those on your own first, and then once you're done doing them, unpause it and we'll go over it. Okay, so number 1, they're only contacting landline people. And then he does, on a side note, this is a buzzword we'll learn later, simple random sample of people from that list. So a simple random sample, for what you know now, is just think of it as it's just a random number of people off that list. But he's only contacting people with landline phones. He's going to miss everybody that doesn't have a landline. And because of that, he's going to overestimate how many people have the true mean age, because landlines tend to be older people that still have them. It's very common for younger people to not have landlines and only use their cell phones. Okay, part of what we're going to learn here are different types of bias, and this particular one is called undercoverage. Undercoverage. You're undercovering a group of people, and in this case, you're undercovering people who don't have landlines. Okay, number 2, there's 2 problems really. One is that only 40 out of the 100 students got back to him, so that's a problem. That is called non-response bias. When you're getting people that are not responding, they're in your sample and you want them to respond, but they're choosing not to. And then also, this one is called response bias. And response bias is more of a kind of umbrella term that talks about somehow there's some setup in the system that you're getting a pattern of incorrect answers. So in this case, because it's the administration asking about doing homework, it makes students more likely to lie and say that they would do it, or maybe they just don't even respond because they didn't do it. So there's a pattern of problems in here. And so they would overestimate how many people, they would get more people saying, yeah, I did my homework, when that really wasn't the case. Okay, Boy Scouts. So the fact that he's wearing his Boy Scout uniform is biasing the people. They can see that he's a Boy Scout, and they're going to be a lot less likely to want to hurt his feelings and therefore say, oh, I love the Boy Scouts, they're the best thing ever. So this, again, is response bias. There is something in the way the setup is for collecting this data that is going to systematically create a pattern of inaccurate answers, and it's because he's wearing his uniform. And so he's going to make people want to say they like it more than they really do, because they don't want to hurt his feelings. Okay, so let's go to the big ideas and write some of that vocab down. But we've really kind of talked about the big things. So we have undercoverage. We have non-response bias. And we have response bias. Okay. So undercoverage is when some members of the population and the population is everybody that you're trying to gather information about. So the particular people, there's a group in the population. Well, okay, let me just finish this. Cannot or are less likely to be chosen. In this case, like the landlines. So when some members of the population either are not getting chosen at all or are less likely to get chosen because you're just not seeing them. As you're trying to sample all these people in the population, it's this whole group that you just don't even see. And so you're completely missing them. Okay, non-response bias. When an individual is selected to be in a sample, but chooses not to participate. They're refusing to give a response or isn't reached. Like maybe you tried calling someone and they just wouldn't pick up the phone. That is the same as a non-response. And I'm going to put something in here that's more of a note for future you. Different from voluntary response, which you don't know what that is yet, but it's going to come up later. So just leaving a note to future you. Non-response bias and voluntary response bias get mixed up a lot, and we will talk about that when we get to voluntary response. Okay, and response bias is a pattern of inaccurate responses could be due to wording, the way you phrased your questions, interviewer, like the guy in his Boy Scout uniform, lying, etc. So there's something going on in the way the data is being collected that is creating a pattern of inaccuracies. Okay, so now I want you, once you're done writing that down, go down and so pause the video, go down and do the check your understanding on your own, and then unpause and I'll show the answers. Okay, so here's the check your understanding. So A is under coverage, similar to people in the first part, missing people with landlines. Here you're missing people that are not in the phone directory, so under coverage. You're not even, the list you have doesn't even, it completely misses a certain population of people. B is non-response. So even if it wasn't that those people chose to be, it's not that they were saying, no, I don't want to be a part of it. You just couldn't even reach them at all. The difference between under coverage and non-response, under coverage, you're not even trying to reach those people. You don't even see them. You're not paying any attention to them. In non-response, you are trying to get data from them, but they're not responding. There's a brick wall there and you're not able to push through. So you're trying, but just not being successful at reaching them. And then C, this was a problem of me giving the 4.1C lesson before the 4.1A. This one is actually called convenience sampling, which is something we will talk about in a few days. So it's not something we've talked about yet. So sorry, asked you to do that. But long story short, it's when you pull a sample of people that are just convenient and they're not necessarily representative of the whole group you're trying to gather information on. So don't worry about that yet. We'll get to that later. Number 2, notice when they say opposed banning that there's a double negative there. This actually happens a lot in initiatives, that they talk about opposing not doing something, which really means they're for it. So opposing banning disposable diapers means they want the freedom to be able to throw away disposable diapers. So 84% is likely greater. The wording of it is super biased, right? It makes it sound like diapers are not a problem in landfills. And so it kind of primes someone to answer, oh, it's fine. We should not be banning disposable diapers. So 84% is probably bigger than the real percentage of people that would answer it with an unbiased question. Okay, that is the lesson for today. So turn in what you have written down into Canvas, and that's your assignment.